The headlines of the news is flashing one of the most important newses for the day, and not just for the day, maybe in like few years, one of the most important things which happened today with respect to Indian polity. Then, with respect to the Indian judiciary, there has been a major change which we are all requesting and which was demanded by the system. That also happened this week. And with respect to the prevention of insults to the National Symbols Act, that also faced an amendment this particular week. Welcome to another episode of the weekly current affairs video from Amrita IAS Academy. I am Manisham Nambiar, the faculty for Indian Polity at Amrita IAS. So, the first news which we are about to discuss from this particular week is with respect to the introduction of a new bill in the Lok Sabha. So, the bill is with respect to increasing the strength of the number of judges in the Supreme Court of India. Currently in Supreme Court shall comprise of one CJI, that is one Chief Justice of India, and another 33 judges. But now a new bill has been introduced in the Lok Sabha to increase that number from the total of 34 to the total of 38. So we will be running through a small idea and also what the Constitution has to speak about this particular matter. So looking at Article 124 of the Constitution. So Article 124 is the one which is dealing with the appointment of judges to the Supreme Court of India. Now, Article 124 says that the judges of the Supreme Court shall be appointed by the President of India. Obviously, all of you might be knowing that. Now, Article 124 also says that unless increased by the Parliament, the number of judges in the Supreme Court shall be one CJI and not more than 7. So, this is the initial number of judges who were present in the Honorable Supreme Court of India. That is 1 CJI and 7 judges, which means a total of 8 judges. So, that was what? The strength of the Supreme Court of India back in 1950. But now, through the proposed amendment, the strength of the Supreme Court of India is proposed to increase to 1 plus 37, that is 38 total number of judges in the Supreme Court of India. So here few things which you want to remember. First thing, appointment is done by the President of India. Second thing, number of judges in the Supreme Court can be increased only by the Parliament of India, and that too a law has to be passed. A bill has to be presented. It has to be passed in both houses of the Parliament and it has to be passed as an act of law. Whereas in this particular situation, you need to also compare the same matter with respect to the number of judges in high courts of different states in India. Now we have discussed that the number of strength or the number of judges within the Supreme Court shall be determined by the Parliament of India. Whereas when it comes to the High Court of the states in India, the number of judges are determined not by the Parliament but by the President of India. So keep that in mind. That is one area which you might get confused most of the times. Both UPSC as well as different test series focus on that particular nuance and include that as part of the statement for the prelims test. So that's it with respect to the number of judges and the new bill which is introduced in the Lok Sabha. Now going to the next news important, and that is with respect to a new bill or a new amendment which is being proposed in the Rajya Sabha. So the new amendment is proposed to a law called Prevention of Insults to the National Honor Act of 1971. Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act. So, according to the Constitution of India, as part of our fundamental duties, citizens. So, fundamental duty. Citizen has a fundamental duty to respect our national flag, our national symbols, our freedom fighters. So, respect the national symbols, and who is responsible or who is having this duty? Only the citizen of India. Okay, so this is what fundamental duty speaks. Whereas, to implement this particular matter, to legalize this particular matter, a law has been passed by the Parliament back in 1971 itself, and this particular law is known as Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act of 1971. So through this particular law, currently, if you disrespect the national flag, if you disrespect the national anthem, it is a criminal offence. You shall be punished with imprisonment, or it can be a fine, or it can be both. That is the current situation when it comes to actions of insult towards the national flag or national anthem. So what is the new proposed amendment? So the new proposed amendment is actually amending section 3 of this particular law. So currently, according to section 3 of the Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act, this particular law, section 3 says that if any person is preventing a particular person from singing national anthem, be specific, national anthem, okay, or if anyone is denying anyone the permission to sing national anthem, in that case, the person who is doing that particular crime shall be imprisoned for a term extending up to 3 years, or can be fined, or both. Now this particular new amendment tries to add national song along with the national anthem, which means once when this particular bill is passed in both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, what will happen to section 3 of this particular law? This section 3 will say, if anyone is prohibiting someone from singing national anthem or national song, that person who is prohibiting shall be given an imprisonment of up to 3 years, or shall be fined, or both punishment shall be given. So that is the situation with respect to the new introduction of amendment to the particular bill, that is the Prevention of Insults to National Honor Bill of 2026. So that's it with respect to the new changes to the law. Now comes the most important news of the day, most important news of the week, not just the week, but also the year, or maybe something which happened in few years. That is a discussion with respect to the freedom of protest, the right to protest for an individual in India, the right to protest of an Indian citizen. So the context of discussing this particular news, as you all know, there were protests ongoing in different parts of India, specifically in Delhi, in and around the premises of Jantar Mantar, with respect to some particular matters, starting with some irregularities in the conduct of an examination, cancellation and reconducting of examination, and along with these reasons, many other reasons were also put forward by the protesters against the government of India. So in this particular matter, you have seen the methodology of protest, which included different means. There were peaceful means, there were some ultra modern pooky means, if I use the word pooky means were there, then there were also some resortment to violence. And you also seen how the police and how the system had reacted to it. And the latest news is that the Honorable Education Minister for the Union Government of India had resigned from the particular post with respect to this particular protest. And that is the context for this particular news for discussion. So, as a civil service aspirant, we are supposed to be objective. We should be reasonable, because a civil servant is the backbone of the nation. A civil servant is the bridge between a citizen and the government, which means as a responsible person with constitutional morality and individual identity and dignity, we are supposed to balance between the demands of the citizen and the responsibility of the government, which brings us to the debate between Article 19 and the right to freedom, which is prescribed under Part 3 of the Constitution of India. So, what does the Constitution say about right to freedom and the fundamental right of an Indian citizen? So, Article 19 is about right to freedom of Indian citizens, and it is specifically speaking about 6 fundamental rights which are available to the citizens of India. So, from these 6 rights, now we are about to discuss 3 freedom and 3 rights which are available to citizens with respect to protest. So, the first point is with respect to the freedom of speech and expression. Every Indian citizen, each and every Indian citizen shall have the freedom of speech and expression. It includes speaking, and at the same time it also includes remaining silent. Speech, it also includes some kinds of protest, not every kind of protest, but some kinds of protest, using a placard, posting something on the social media respectfully. So likewise, freedom of speech and expression includes our expression or our reaction to something which is happening around us. So that is the first right. Now comes the second one of the most important matter which is related to public order, that is assemble. The right of an Indian citizen to assemble in a public space. We as the citizens of India, our constitution and the makers of the constitution had guaranteed us our freedom to assemble at a particular place. Why should we assemble? To discuss about what our life should be for the future, to discuss about how our rights should be valued by the system, to discuss about how we should continue running our democracy in the future. So, assemble peacefully. That is the next key term. You have the right to assemble, but your assembly should be peaceful and without any arms. That is the most important thing. You have democratic means of protest, and that should be democratic by respecting the lives of others too. So, you can peacefully assemble in a place, and you can assemble without any arms, without any weapons. You can assemble, and that is part of our fundamental right to freedom of expression, our right to assemble. And then comes the third one, that is freedom to move freely throughout the territory of India. So, this is the situation of our right to freedom as mentioned under Article 19 of the Constitution, and stemming from these three rights comes our right to protest, our right to dissent. I am not agreeing with what you are saying. So, that is your right to dissent, to say that you do not agree with this, you want changes in the system, and that is our fundamental right to protest and dissent. But at the same time, the same Article 19 which gave us the right to protest is also telling us there are some reasonable restrictions. You have to keep that in mind. Your right comes with a responsibility. And what are these responsibilities? These responsibilities include many things, these reasonable restrictions, and they say that whenever you are using your right to freedom, you should make sure that public order is not affected, public morality is not affected, sovereignty of India is not affected, the unity of the nation is not affected. Likewise, there are some certain points which are giving you a responsibility. So, what does the Constitution want? The Constitution is not blindly giving out rights to people, but the Constitution is empowering the citizen to be a responsible one, not to act as a silent player, but at the same time not to act as a violent player. Just like the idea of the golden means, you should be someone who is in between silence and violence. You should be responsible. While you are upholding your rights, you should be maintaining responsibility. The protesters are demanding responsibility and accountability from the state. Likewise, protesters should also make sure that they are upholding responsibility and accountability. So, that is Article 19 for you, as simple as that. Now, with respect to this particular same matter itself, there are few things when you are attending a mains answer, you can utilize these judgments as part of your answer. These are the most recent ones with respect to the right to protest of an individual. So, one of the cases in 2018 was Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan versus Union of India. In that case, Supreme Court had categorically said that blanket bans on protest at Jantar Mantar is unconstitutional. See, Jantar Mantar is a historical location, it is a symbolic location, and it is a place which is designated for peaceful protest without affecting the public order and the life of others. It is a place where we can conduct peaceful protest. So, the Supreme Court had categorically said that people have a right to do protest. If it is peaceful, it should be let to continue. If they are not carrying arms, they should be permitted. But at the same time, Supreme Court also warned the citizen, you should make sure that your group is maintaining responsibility. Your group is not impacting the lives of others. So, that was the judgment of Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan versus Union of India. Now comes one of the most important ones, that is Anuradha Bhasin versus Union of India. You might have heard about this particular case. It is with respect to internet shutdowns. So, in this case, Supreme Court said that right to internet is a fundamental right. Okay, there is no question to that. But at the same time, for security reasons, government may conduct internet shutdowns. That is permitted. But these internet shutdowns should satisfy the doctrine of proportionality. See, what is this doctrine? See, what was the action of the state here? state suspended or maybe state temporarily stopped the action of or the usage of internet. So that was an extra act from the side of the state, a curtailing upon our liberty. So here the Supreme Court says that that particular action should be proportionate, which means that particular action should be justifiable. Why you are shutting the internet? That should be reasonable. You should have proper documentation, you should have proper evidences, your action should be objective. So that was what the Supreme Court of India mentioned in this particular case. Now comes another case, that is Amit Saini versus Commissioner of Police 2020. So in this case, Supreme Court had said that protest is a right, but at the same time, indefinite occupation of a public road isn't. See, you might have seen different situations of protest when protesters are blocking the road. Yes, they are expressing their dissent, but that blockage of the road is causing disruption of life to the rest of the people. So in that case, right to protest is standing against the fundamental rights of other people. Fundamental right to travel, fundamental right to profession, fundamental right to life. So in that case, Supreme Court had said that yes, people have the right to protest, but that right to protest shall not be misused. Okay, you may protest, but an indefinite occupation of a public road, indefinitely you are utilizing a road for your own matters of protest, that is not proportionate, that is not allowable, that is not a fundamental right. So these are the main cases which you can mention as part of your answer. So right now, when you look at the matter, besides the politics, we need not discuss about the politics here. That is not a concern for our answer. As an individual, that might be a concern, that is a concern. But for our answer perspective, you should be objective. You should be substantiating your answer with proper arguments where Article 19 is your key point. That is the spear which you have to use, Article 19, which includes the right to protest as well as the reasonable restrictions. Then comes the judgments of the Supreme Court of India. So, concluding this particular session, one thing which I have to highlight, fundamental right of the people is one of the most foundational aspects of the Constitution of India and one of the most important tenets which we each and every citizen, not just the citizen, the state, the police mechanism, the judiciary, each and every person who has to uphold. But at the same time comes a responsibility. We as the owners of this nation, we as the proper people who are supposed to inherit this culture and nation, we have a responsibility. We, the young generation, has a responsibility to make sure that our fundamental rights are upheld, and at the same time the system is accountable, and at the same time we are also accountable. With this statement, I am concluding the day. Have a nice day for all of you. Thank you.
Amrita IAS Academy.